My heels clicked against the polished marble of JFK's Terminal 4, each step echoing louder than my heartbeat. I tightened my grip on the leather tote slung over my shoulder, the one holding Mom's passport and the surprise itinerary I had spent months planning. Her birthday gift. Her first trip to Europe. My way of saying thank you for the sacrifices, for the love, even for the silence we both pretended was enough. I had imagined this moment countless times. Mom smiling, her eyes lighting up at the idea of Paris, Rome, and Barcelona. I wanted her to see the world the way I had finally learned to see myself, full of possibility. But then I saw her. Standing right beside Mom, suitcase in hand, was my sister, Claire. Her presence hit me like turbulence midair. Perfect Claire, polished, confident, every strand of her chestnut hair tucked neatly behind her ear as if the universe itself smoothed it there. We hadn't spoken in nearly 3 years. Not after the last fight. Not after the words that cut so deep I had to leave to survive them. And now here she was, smiling at Mom like nothing had ever happened. Like my gift wasn't my gift. I swallowed the lump in my throat, adjusting the silk blouse that suddenly clung too tightly against my skin. The terminal's air smelled of fresh espresso and jet fuel, yet all I could taste was bitterness. I gifted Mom this trip, I whispered under my breath. So, why is my sister standing here? 3 years earlier, I wasn't standing in an airport with designer luggage and polished nails. I was sitting at our family's oak dining table in upstate New York, clutching a lukewarm mug of coffee as though it could shield me from the storm brewing around me. "You're being reckless, Olivia," my father had said, his voice clipped, the way it always was when disappointment coated his words. "Quitting your job with no backup plan? That's not ambition. That's foolishness." I remember how my hands trembled, leaving faint rings of coffee on the table as I set the mug down. I had tried to explain how staying in that suffocating office, filing reports and fetching coffee for people who never learned my name, was killing me. How I wanted more. How I needed to carve my own path, even if it terrified me. But Claire was there too. Of course she was. Sitting across from me, hair perfectly ironed, internship offer from a Manhattan firm sitting neatly in her folder. She leaned forward, her voice sugar-dipped but sharp. "Not everyone gets to chase dreams, Liv. Some of us live in the real world. Maybe you should try it sometime." The words stung more than I wanted to admit. My throat tightened, a lump pressing so hard it hurt to breathe. Mom had opened her mouth, as if to soften the blow, but she stayed quiet. She always did. It was Grandma Ruth who noticed. She sat at the head of the table, her silver hair pinned back, her eyes sharper than all of ours combined. When no one was looking, she slipped off the bracelet she always wore, a thin silver band etched with tiny stars, and pressed it into my palm under the table. Her whisper was so soft only I could hear it. "Don't let them write your story, Olivia. You pick up the pen." I looked down at that bracelet, cool against my skin, and something inside me shifted. My chest burned, not with shame this time, but with resolve. That night, after another round of my father's lectures and Claire's smirks, I packed a single suitcase. I left behind the neat suburban streets, the safety net, the comparisons I could never win. I walked out carrying little more than that bracelet, a few $100s, and a heart heavy with hurt, but for the first time, it beat to my own rhythm. The first months after leaving home felt like freefall. I rented a shoebox apartment in Queens with water-stained ceilings and a radiator that hissed like it had secrets. My mattress was secondhand, my meals were mostly instant ramen, and my savings evaporated faster than I cared to admit. But every morning, I'd slide Grandma Ruth's silver bracelet onto my wrist and whisper her words back to myself. "Don't let them write your story." I worked 2 jobs, waitressing at a crowded diner by day, answering phones at a cramped real estate office by night. My body ached, my feet blistered, but every paycheck meant one step closer to independence. In the stolen hours between shifts, I poured myself into design classes online. I'd always had an eye for spaces, how light could transform a room, how colors could change moods. I wanted to build something real from that instinct. One evening, exhausted and near tears, I met Marian Foster, the diner's regular who always ordered chamomile tea with honey. She was in her mid-50s, with kind eyes and an elegance that made her presence impossible to ignore. She asked me, almost casually, why a young woman like me looked so worn down. When I confessed my dream, interior design, owning my own firm someday, she didn't laugh. She nodded, then slid me her card. I'm renovating my townhouse in Brooklyn. Show me what you do with the living room. That project was my first spark. I stayed up 3 nights straight sketching layouts, building digital mock-ups, creating mood boards with colors that made my laptop screen glow. Marian loved it. She hired me. Then she recommended me. 1 project turned into 3. 3 turned into 10. I quit the night job first, then the diner. My days became filled with measuring tapes, fabric swatches, and site visits instead of endless plates of pancakes. The money wasn't huge at first, but every check felt like a victory. The wins were small but unforgettable. The first time a client mailed me a thank you note and a bonus check. The moment I saw my name, Olivia Harris Interiors, on a simple business card. The day I walked into a furniture expo, and vendors actually recognized me. Still, I kept it quiet. Online, I posted modest updates, a photo of coffee in a sunlit studio, a vague caption about working hard. Never the full picture. I didn't want my family's voices in my head again, doubting, dismissing, or worse, claiming credit for my climb. Success came like the tide, slow, steady, unstoppable. By the time I signed the lease for my first real office, a sleek corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows, I realized I had become exactly what they said I couldn't be. Independent. Accomplished. Enough. But no one at home knew. Not Claire. Not my father. Not even Mom. And standing at that airport years later, staring at my sister's perfect smile, I felt the secret burn inside me. A part of me wanted her to keep believing I was still the girl who left with nothing. Another part was ready, aching, to finally show them everything. At the airport, Claire's presence gnawed at me like a pebble in my shoe. Mom beamed between us, oblivious to the tension crackling in the air. She hugged me, kissed my cheek, then fussed with her boarding pass while Claire leaned casually against her suitcase, eyes flicking over my outfit like she was calculating the price tag. You look nice, she said finally, her tone drenched in that faint superiority she'd perfected years ago. I forced a smile. So do you. Neither of us, said the words screaming in our heads. What are you doing here? Why now? The flight itself was a blur of quiet civilities. Mom chattered about sightseeing and food tours while Claire scrolled through her phone. I spent most of it staring at the in-flight map, silently rehearsing the confrontation I knew was coming. Because Paris wasn't just Mom's gift. It was where my office was, my headquarters, my sanctuary, the life I had built piece by piece. And whether I liked it or not, Claire was about to see it. The reveal came sooner than I expected. We arrived in Paris, exhausted but buzzing with adrenaline. I ushered Mom and Claire into a sleek black car I had arranged. Claire's brow arched. Since when can you afford chauffeurs? I only smiled. You'll see. The car pulled up in front of a sandstone building on Rue de Rivoli, its tall windows glinting in the afternoon sun. Inside, the lobby smelled of fresh lilies and polished marble. My office occupied the top floor, a sprawling space flooded with light, walls lined with art from local painters, samples of fabrics and woods neatly arranged on steel racks. Mom stopped in the doorway, her hand flying to her mouth. Olivia, this is yours? Claire froze, her suitcase forgotten at her side. Her eyes swept across the glass desk with my name etched in silver. The wall of framed magazine spreads featuring my projects, the shelves stacked with portfolios. I let the silence stretch, savoring the moment. For years, they had painted me as the lost cause, the dreamer with no direction. Now they were standing in the middle of my empire. Yes, I said finally, my voice steady. This is mine. Every inch of it. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but Claire laughed, a short, sharp sound. You're kidding. Interior design? You were waiting tables last time I heard. I walked to my desk, running my fingers over the smooth glass edge. That was years ago. This company handles properties across Europe and New York. We've been featured in Architectural Digest twice. Last year, our revenue passed 8 figures. Claire blinked. For once, words seemed to fail her. I turned to Mom. This trip, your birthday gift, it wasn't just a vacation. I wanted you to see what I've built, what I've become. Mom's tears spilled freely now, her smile trembling but radiant. I always knew you had it in you, Liv. I didn't know it would look like this. I met her gaze, squarely. No game. I was protecting my peace. I didn't need your approval to succeed. And I didn't need to prove myself until now. The room pulsed with silence. Claire's cheeks flushed, Mom clutched my hand, and for the first time in years, I felt the power shift. I wasn't the younger sister begging to be heard. I was the woman who had built something undeniable. And they knew it. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The hum of the Paris streets below seeped faintly through the tall windows, a reminder that the world outside kept moving even as ours stood still. Claire shifted uncomfortably, her arms crossed. I recognized the look, defensive, cornered. Once, it would have silenced me. Now, it only clarified what I needed to say. I need to make something clear. I began, my voice calm but unyielding. I didn't bring you here to gloat or prove a point. I brought you here because I refuse to live in the shadows of old lies. Mom squeezed my hand gently, but I pulled back, standing taller. For years, you all believed I was the reckless one, the failure, the disappointment. And maybe I let you believe that because it was easier than fighting. But that ends today. Claire scoffed, her voice sharp. So what now? You expect us to bow down? Apologize? I shook my head slowly. Not bow down. Change. Her brows knit together, but I pressed on. Claire, you've spent your whole life competing with me, even when I wasn't in the race. You measure your worth by being better than me. That stops now. If you want a relationship with me, if you want to be part of Mom's joy, you need to focus on your own dreams, not tearing down mine. Her lips parted like she might argue, but I didn't give her the chance. And Mom, I turned, my voice softening but staying firm, I love you. That's why I gave you this trip. But I need you to understand, silence isn't support. Every time you stayed quiet when Dad criticized me, when Claire cut me down, it hurt worse than the words. If we're going to move forward, I need your voice. I need to know you're on my side. Tears slid down Mom's cheeks, and she nodded quickly. You're right. I should have spoken up. I will. I promise. The bracelet on my wrist caught the light as I lifted my hand. Grandma Ruth's words flickered through me again. Don't let them write your story. I inhaled slowly. These aren't demands. They're boundaries. I've worked too hard, lost too much sleep, fought too many battles to let the same patterns back into my life. If you can respect that, then we can rebuild something beautiful. If not, then this office, this life, it will be where we part ways for good. The silence that followed was thick, but it wasn't the suffocating kind anymore. It was possibility. Claire's jaw tightened, but her eyes shimmered with something unfamiliar. Maybe regret, maybe fear. Mom reached out and clasped my hand again, firmer this time, her grip carrying something it never had before. Conviction. For the first time, I wasn't begging for space. I was defining it. And they were the ones who had to decide whether to step into it. The next morning, Paris felt different. The air was crisp, the Seine glittered under the pale sun, and for the first time in years, I felt light. At breakfast, Mom reached across the small cafe table, her hand warm around mine. Olivia, she whispered, her voice unsteady, I should have told you long ago how proud I am. I thought keeping peace meant staying quiet, but I see now silence isn't love. I'll do better. Her words melted something frozen inside me. The little girl who had once sat at that oak dining table, desperate for validation, finally exhaled. Claire was quieter than usual, stirring her cappuccino, avoiding my eyes. But when she finally looked up, there was no smirk, no polished armor. Just raw honesty. I was cruel to you, she admitted. I thought if I pushed you down, it would keep me on top. But you didn't just rise. You built a whole new world. And now, I don't even know who I am without the competition. I studied her, my heart tugging at the vulnerability in her voice. For so long, I had dreamed of this moment, an apology and admission. But more than anything, I wanted her to stop chasing my shadow. You don't need to be me, Claire, I said gently. Find what lights you up. That's the only way forward. She nodded, swallowing hard, as if the idea both scared and freed her. Later that afternoon, as we strolled along the cobblestone streets, I felt the silver bracelet shift on my wrist. I touched it, remembering Grandma Ruth's whisper. Don't let them write your story. You pick up the pen. I realized then, it hadn't just been about proving myself. It was about reclaiming my voice, rewriting the narrative of who I was and who I could be. That night, as the Eiffel Tower glittered against the Paris sky, Mom leaned against me, Claire beside her, and for once, the silence between us wasn't heavy. It was hopeful. I closed my eyes, breathing in the cool night air, and let the words form. Not for them, but for me. I thought I was gifting Mom a trip, I said softly, almost like a prayer. But what I really gave myself was the truth, that I was always enough.